In the pentagram rite, it was like the shadows bent and flickered. In the first set of vibrations, I saw a spiraling in of pink. In the second set, there was an X across the cavern, but it didn't go that far towards the entry or towards, well, deeper on. In the third set of vibrations, there was onion layers of colors that pulsed forth beyond the shadows. In the fourth set, it was as if there was faint neon particles moving wildly about inside the shadows. And in the fifth set of vibrations, I felt the pleasant tingling build up, particularly on my feet and lower body. And I felt heady, buzzy, content with the rest of it. And I felt the presence in the Northeast. In the final reading, I saw a faint green, almost white cone appear within the pink cave. And I heard a sound like a conveyor belt or a saw or something with rotary motion. In the final scrying, this gave off a brighter green light, and this light filled the room, and it mixed within pink in the mirror. And then the pleasant numbness overtook me, and I'm still filled with a pulsing euphoria. We're all part of the same thing. We're all in a position to experience and practice different combinations. In wild preservation, we express ourselves. Through thin and thick, light is carried through the darkness. With interactive detail and power, we honor with ritual magic. With art and science, we share of our discoveries and compose mysteries. There is a connection to the ancient and the modern. The morals and ethics are a physical nature and a spirit. It is with feeling, with emotions, of a purpose, of progress. Kind of like the Greek daimon, the universal form was realized by Frederick Adams. In feminine, form. In essence, an inclusion, a source of all qualities and forms, can be thought of in a modest way. The all-male, anti-nature idea of deity that creeps up in the Christian Bible can be coaxed back to affirming the creation that deity has brought about. Creation is as a body approached from different angles, and we work with the parts with different sorts of approaches. Certainly we have positive and negative symbols like the sun and the moon resting upon earth. The light and the dark, idealized forms, are considered externally and internally. I'm thinking back to the Drill Master book, and yeah, 3 flashes from the east after the operation outside of the temple. Again, different spots, not quite where I might have guessed they would have been, but you have like the 4-element thing. It's like you're establishing within yourself these different things. Plant and animal myths can guide us back. Same thing with different ideas of fluids of the body and the differences between the male and the female, which of course, just like light and darkness, need to work together in a symbiotic way. Equal but different if they want to be, right? Whether we're taking symbolic or literal lessons from the animal life, we can look at certain symbols, like snakes and eggs and all that, as indications for our enlightenment to what is beyond just this physical life. More than just coincidences or occurrences, dreams, visions, and other senses of extraordinary perception can be analyzed. It can be directed and provoked in certain ways. I have talked much before about how throughout the body we have what could be said to be 114 chakras, and these create certain chemicals or process certain chemicals in ways that produce what we can call the highs and lows that people go after for drugs, and we can have them without the drugs, without the non-awareness, without being crazy, maybe being crazy in the way of being so sane that people think you're insane. Friday can be said to be of the most sacred of days. Now, a lot of old cultures, like the Celtic culture, considered sunset to start the day, so that's when you would start. And people will employ the night to connect to the sense of the stars and all that, and connect that to the earth, and connect that to the inner light within themselves. We can think of the left-hand path of identification, an outward flow, becoming, and we can think of the right-hand path of drawing in and connecting, and work these together to form our sense with what people call gods and goddesses, causal beings, dark ones, shining ones, whatever. And people will think of these as larvae and other sorts of types of entities, and certainly there is a variety in types of entities. Entities of places, entities of things, ones that go back and forth. Some, like Rakshasas, are, kind of like guardians, but, you can think of those as entities of certain places. But, some travel to and fro, so you don't have to visit a particular place to encounter this sort of entity or this entity or another. Now, we can make ritual spots, and 1.5 times your height, in each direction is an important thing to employ. And trying to extend your connection beyond your little circle or ritual space, perhaps going elsewhere, carrying just minute things to and fro to place in one or another. Offerings of any sort can give you an opportunity to notice differences within and without. You may want to make a personal art object and connect to particulars about the local. And when people talk about deity or part of deity or part of divinity or whatever as white, they don't mean like it's one race, or when they say black, they don't mean that sort of thing. But they mean the faintness, the otherworldliness, the subtle. And one thing also that we can look at, The White Goddess by Robert Graves is an important source. And one of the things about that book is it talks about trees. And here we talk about trees as connecting to some of the stone monuments that were erected later. Well, I don't think that explains all of it, but these things were connected, just like your personal Stonehenge or Woodhenge or altar space can be connected to, events in the year marked off by an extra direction or something, just for you, Feraferia uses 8 directions more universally. I've sort of hinted at the whole balance of the elements. We have the Phytella here, which obviously kind of reminds you of that whole Baphomet thing, and some of the illustrations kind of connect that, this symbol to an overall shape formed. Obviously, you can kind of think of that as sun and moon, and our bra and panties, or the whole thing operates like a tree. By the way, that's not the official definition. I'm just, giving the ideas here. And maybe you can think of salt, sulfur, and mercury too. The seasonal festivals are 9 in Feraferia, between the Celtic New Year of Samhain, well, Samhain is the proper pronunciation, and Yule, the winter solstice. They have a more encompassing repose, and they call Harvest Home the fall equinox. Now, I personally use the astronomical/historical dates for these. The solstices and the equinoxes, I think they observe them generally correct, but depending on leap years and that sort of thing, you can have some variation. The cross quarters were never at the start of the month. They were about a week in. The cross quarter of February is closer to the start of February, but still, they don't quite. There's Indian myths about why the one half of the year is longer than the other, rather than always being exactly like, you know, 45 or 46 days between any of the 8 points of the year. And they look at their seasonal cycle as starting at the vernal equinox and then returning back around towards the spring equinox again, you know, and sort of the development of relationships and family and the individual, you can say. What was that movie? Somner? Yeah. Well, the violent aspects and the war and stuff is generally left out of that because it's not necessary. Just because there's an abundance at these particular harvest times doesn't mean we need to start wars. It's like that actually tends to start wars more than scarcity does. People tend to try to figure out desperately how to work together in most societies. I think if things break down again, that may not happen because they've been programming something different. The start of the dark quarter of the year is seen as a thinning of the veils. It kind of starts at the fall equinox. And so there are times that are considered more important than others. You may want to figure out where the settings are of the sun and moon. Other planets and directions and types of beings of the quadrants and stuff can be thought of particularly. Certainly some rituals, ideas, and stuff may come through this book, and it's worth it for its didactic art. Want to throw in that sort of review. And there's a set of gestures illustrated in one of these things where you could say homage, fire, air, water, earth, and praise. And of course, one of the things that we may want to get into is you want to figure out stuff to do like all the time if you want to, but like, okay, this for this day, that for that day, some other things for other days. Myths will convey structures and formulas for us to work out. It's important to not just have dry forms of existence and engagement. Unto our death and beyond, we can be building something up with real beings and real things and a healthy imagination that